The monitoring station hung in the darkness of space like a metal spiderweb. Inside, dozens of Valorian technicians watched their screens with the calm confidence of a species that had ruled their corner of the galaxy for 3,000 years. They had seen everything, or so they thought. Technician Mirasol was halfway through her shift when the alarm chimed. It was a soft sound, not urgent, just informative. She glanced at her display and saw what the automated systems had found. A fleet, unknown origin, heading toward Valorian space. She called over her supervisor, a veteran named Thexamar who had worked the station for 20 cycles. He leaned over her shoulder and studied the readings. His face showed no concern. In fact, he almost smiled. "How many ships?" he asked. 73, sir. All capital class. Energy signatures?" Mirasol pulled up the detailed scan. Fusion drives. Basic electromagnetic communications. Kinetic weapons with some missile systems. No quantum links detected. No graviton manipulation. No plasma technology. Thexmar actually laughed. "They're using fusion drives? What is this, the old era?" He patted her shoulder. "Send the report to Fleet Command, but mark it low priority. These primitives probably don't even know they've entered our territory." But something bothered Mirasol. She looked at the secondary readings. "Sir, they're broadcasting on all frequencies. The signal is very strong, but it's encrypted. I can't break it." "Of course you can't. Different species, different encryption. They're probably just talking to each other." Thexmar walked back to his station. "Don't worry about it. Fleet Command will send someone to escort them out or bring them to a diplomatic station." Mirasol nodded, but she kept watching. The unknown fleet moved steadily forward. Their formation was tight and organized. These weren't random ships wandering lost through space. They knew exactly where they were going. 2 days later, Fleet Admiral Kessithor received the report in his office on the Valorian homeworld. He was a tall being with blue-tinted skin and 4 arms, each moving independently as he reviewed multiple data screens at once. His service record was impressive. 40 battles, 40 victories. He had never lost a ship under his command. He read through the sensor data with growing amusement. Fusion drives. The Valorians had stopped using those 600 years ago. He remembered seeing them in museums as a child. And kinetic weapons? That meant these aliens were literally throwing metal at their enemies. How quaint. His second-in-command, Commander Velkas, stood nearby. "What should we do, Admiral?" Kessithor waved one hand dismissively. "Send a standard enforcement fleet. 47 ships should be more than enough. Have them intercept and deliver the standard message. If these primitives don't turn around, disable their engines and tow them to Station Gamma for processing." "Should we wait for diplomatic channels?" "For what? To talk to a species that still uses fusion drives?" Kessithor shook his head. "No. We show them our strength, they understand their place, and everyone goes home. It's the same story we've done 100 times. Velkas hesitated. "Sir, there is one odd detail. They're broadcasting continuously, and the encryption is very sophisticated, much more advanced than their ships suggest." Kessithor finally looked up. "Sophisticated how?" "Our AI can't break it. Neither can our quantum computers." For a moment, the Admiral was silent. Then he shrugged. "Maybe they bought the encryption from someone else. Or stole it. It doesn't matter. Encryption won't stop a plasma lance." He made the authorization with a gesture. "Send the fleet. Let's get this over with." The Valorian enforcement fleet launched 12 hours later. 47 warships, each one a masterpiece of technology. Their hulls were made from quantum-hardened alloys. Their weapons could tear through planets. Their shields could stop anything short of a star-going supernova. And every single system was controlled by advanced artificial intelligence, linked together through quantum networks that operated faster than light itself. Captain Brendid commanded the flagship. He had done enforcement missions like this before. They were boring but necessary. Sometimes younger species needed to be reminded that space was not free for everyone to wander through. The Valorian Empire had rules, and those rules would be respected. As his fleet moved toward the intercept point, he reviewed the data on the unknown aliens. No one had identified their species yet. The ships were blocky and ugly, with none of the elegant curves of Valorian design. They looked like flying boxes with engines attached. "Primitive indeed. Status report," Brendid ordered. His AI responded immediately in his mind through his neural link. "All ships ready. Weapons charged. Shields at maximum. Estimated contact in 3 hours." Brendid settled into his command chair. 3 hours. Then a short conversation. Then home in time for his daughter's birthday. Easy. But back on the monitoring station, Mirasol was worried. She had been tracking both fleets and something was wrong. Small things at first. One of their surveillance satellites near the unknown fleet had stopped responding. Then another. Then 3 more. "Thexmar," she called out. "We're losing satellites." Her supervisor came over, frowning now. "Which ones?" "All the ones closest to the unknown fleet. They're just going offline. No warning, no damage reports, just gone." Thexmar checked his own systems. She was right. 17 satellites had gone dark in the last 6 hours, all of them in the same region of space where the unknown fleet was traveling. Could it be a malfunction? Mirasol asked. 17 satellites all failing at the same time? No. Thexmar opened a priority channel to Fleet Command. "This is Station XR7. We have a developing situation. The unknown fleet may have capabilities we didn't detect, but by then it was too late." Captain Brendid's fleet was already at the intercept point. The unknown ships hung in space before them, 73 vessels against 47. The numbers didn't matter. Valorian technology was superior. Everyone knew it. Brendid opened all communication channels. "Attention, unknown vessels. You have entered Valorian territory without authorization. Power down your weapons and prepare to be escorted to diplomatic processing. This is your only warning." The response was not what he expected. The unknown ships didn't power down. They didn't respond at all through normal channels. Instead, their broadcast signal intensified. It was the same encrypted message, but now it was much stronger, so strong that it started to interfere with his ship's systems. "AI, filter out that signal," Brendid ordered. For the first time in his career, the AI didn't respond immediately. There was a pause. A tiny, impossible pause. Then the lights flickered. Brendid sat up straight. What was that? His weapons officer turned from her station, her face confused. "Sir, the plasma lance just went offline. It won't respond to commands. Impossible. Run diagnostics. I'm trying, sir." The diagnostic system isn't responding either. Around the bridge, other officers started reporting problems. Navigation was glitching. Secondary weapons were offline. The quantum link to Fleet Command was experiencing lag, something that should never happen with faster-than-light communication. Through the view screen, the unknown fleet just sat there. They hadn't fired a single shot. They hadn't even moved. They were just broadcasting that signal, and somehow everything was falling apart. Brendid felt something he hadn't felt in years. "Fear. All ships," he said quietly. "Battle stations. Prepare for combat." But deep down, he wondered how you fought an enemy that destroyed you without firing a weapon. The unknown aliens, the ones the Valorians had dismissed as primitive, had just proven that sometimes the most dangerous weapon wasn't the biggest gun. Sometimes it was the one you never saw coming. And the Valorians, with all their advanced technology, were about to learn a very hard lesson about the species called humans. Captain Brendid watched his command screen die and come back to life 3 times in 10 seconds. Each time it flickered back on, more systems showed red. Weapons offline, shields failing, communications breaking apart into static and strange patterns. "Sir, I can't reach half the fleet," his communications officer reported. Her voice was steady, but her hands shook as she worked her console. "The quantum link keeps dropping." "Switch to electromagnetic backup," Brendid ordered. "Already tried. It's being jammed by that signal from the unknown fleet." Brendid stared at the human ships through his view screen. They still hadn't moved. They just floated there in the darkness, broadcasting their encrypted message. No weapons fire, no visible attacks, just that signal, growing stronger every minute. "Weapons status report." The weapons officer slammed her fist on her console in frustration. "Plasma lance won't initialize. Particle beams are offline. Even the kinetic backup systems are frozen. Sir, it's like something is reaching into our computers and turning everything off. That's impossible. Our systems are quantum encrypted. Nothing can hack them." "I know, sir. But look." She transferred her display to the main screen. Brendid saw the diagnostic readout. System after system was failing, not from damage but from internal errors, cascading failures that spread through the ship's network like a disease. The AI that normally spoke in his mind through his neural link was silent. That scared him more than anything else. The AI never went silent. It was always there, always ready with information and tactical advice. Now there was just emptiness where it should be. All ships, this is Captain Brendid. Retreat to fallback position Gamma. Execute now. Only 12 ships responded. The others were either too damaged to move or couldn't receive the message. Brendid watched in horror as 3 of his ships drifted helplessly, their engines dark. Inside those ships were 300 Valorians each. Good people. His people. Engineering, I need engines. Now. The chief engineer's voice came through, barely audible over the static. Captain, the main drive is offline. We're running on emergency thrusters only. Whatever is affecting our systems is deep in the code. It's like the ship is forgetting how to be a ship. Then the lights went out. Emergency lighting kicked in after 3 seconds, bathing the bridge in red. But those 3 seconds of complete darkness felt like an eternity. Brendid heard someone crying quietly at their station. He couldn't blame them. Sir, his science officer called out, I'm detecting massive electromagnetic activity from the unknown fleet. It's not just a broadcast, it's a weapon. Some kind of directed energy that's overloading our systems. But our shields should stop electromagnetic attacks. Our shields are designed to stop physical attacks and directed energy weapons. This is different. It's like they're not attacking the ship. They're attacking the information itself, the data that makes our systems work. Brendid tried to understand. The Valorians had built their entire civilization on quantum networks and artificial intelligence. Everything was connected. Every ship talked to every other ship. Every weapon system coordinated with every other weapon system. It made them incredibly efficient and powerful. But now he realized it also made them vulnerable. If someone could attack the network itself, the connections between things, then all that power meant nothing. Another ship went dark on his display. That made 27 ships completely disabled. The others were barely functioning. His grand fleet of 47 warships had been reduced to helpless metal boxes in less than an hour. And the enemy still hadn't fired a shot. Get me a message to Fleet Command. Any way possible. Tell them we're under attack by an unknown weapon system. Tell them to keep all ships away from this sector until we figure out what's happening. His communications officer worked frantically. I'll try, sir, but the quantum link is completely dead. I'll have to send a basic electromagnetic signal. It will take hours to reach home. Do it. While she worked, Brendid made a decision. He had to get closer to one of those unknown ships. He had to see what they were dealing with. Helm, use emergency thrusters. Take us toward the nearest enemy vessel. Slow approach. Sir, without shields or weapons, that's suicide. They haven't shot at us yet. I don't think they want to. They want to disable us, not destroy us. There's a difference. Brendid hoped he was right. Move us in. Science, I want every sensor we have left pointed at that ship. I want to know what we're fighting. His ship crawled forward, moving at a fraction of its normal speed. The human vessel grew larger on the view screen. It was ugly and blocky, just as the initial reports had said. No elegant curves, no artistic design. It looked like someone had welded together a bunch of metal boxes and called it a spaceship. But as they got closer, Brendid saw details that the long-range scans had missed. The hull was thick, much thicker than a Valorian ship. And there were no external sensors or delicate antenna arrays. Everything was built inside that armored shell. Sir, I'm getting readings now, the science officer said. That ship's hull is designed to block electromagnetic radiation. It's like they built a fortress around all their important systems, and there are no quantum links between ships. Each one operates completely independently. How do they coordinate? Basic radio communication. Very simple, very slow. But it can't be jammed by our quantum interference because it doesn't use quantum technology. Brendid felt a chill run through his body. These aliens had built their ships to be the opposite of everything Valorian. Where Valorian ships were connected and networked and smart, these ships were isolated and independent and simple. Where Valorian technology relied on AI and quantum computing, these ships used basic systems that couldn't be hacked because they weren't smart enough to hack. It wasn't primitive technology. It was hardened technology, built to survive in hostile conditions. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the unknown fleet. It's on basic electromagnetic frequencies. Audio only. Play it. For a moment, there was only static. Then a voice came through. It was rough and mechanical, translated by a computer from an alien language, but the words were clear. Valorian vessels, you entered our contested zone without permission. You came here expecting an easy fight. You were wrong. We have disabled your fleet to prove a point. We can give you back your systems, or we can keep you floating in the dark until your life support fails. The choice is yours. Brendid's blood turned to ice. Who are you? We are humans, and we are done being ignored. The transmission ended. The bridge was silent. Everyone stared at the view screen, at the ugly human ships that had destroyed an entire Valorian fleet without firing a single conventional weapon. The science officer spoke quietly. Sir, I just realized something. They offered to turn our systems back on. That means they have complete control. They could shut us down permanently if they wanted. Why haven't they? I don't know. Maybe they really don't want to kill us. Far away on the Valorian homeworld, the effects of the human attack were just beginning. Power grids flickered in 3 major cities. Traffic control systems crashed, causing chaos in the airways. Banking networks went offline, trapping billions of credits in frozen accounts. In the Capitol building, Fleet Command was in emergency session. They had lost contact with Captain Brendid's fleet. Worse, they were starting to lose contact with each other. The quantum network that held their civilization together was failing. One admiral stood before the gathered leaders. We need to understand what's happening. This isn't a normal attack. This is something we've never seen before. Should we send another fleet? With what? Half our ships are reporting system failures. The ones that still work are barely functional. Whatever the humans did to Brendid's fleet, it's spreading through our entire network. An older counselor raised her hand. If the network is the problem, can we shut it down? Disconnect everything? And do what? Go back to the old ways? We haven't operated without AI assistance in 300 years. Our people don't even remember how. The younger generation has neural implants connected to the network. If we shut it all down, millions could die. The room fell silent. They had built their entire civilization on advanced technology, and now that technology was killing them. On the monitoring station where this had all started, Mirasol watched her screens go dark one by one. She looked at Thexmar. Sir, what do we do? Her supervisor sat down heavily in his chair. He suddenly looked very old and very tired. I don't know, Mirasol. For the first time in my life, I honestly don't know. In the darkness of space, 73 human ships continued their broadcast. The message was simple once you understood it. It said that humanity had tried diplomacy and been ignored. They had tried warnings and been laughed at. So now they were speaking in a language the Valorians would finally understand, the language of consequences. The Valorian homeworld had never experienced a blackout before. For 3,000 years, their power grids had run without interruption. Their technology was perfect, their systems infallible. Until they weren't. Dr. Velrin stood in her dark apartment looking out at the city below. Usually the capital was a beautiful sight at night, with millions of lights creating patterns that stretched to the horizon. Now whole sections were dark. The lights that remained flickered uncertainly, like stars dying in the distance. She was a xenoanthropologist, someone who studied alien cultures and behaviors. For 20 years she had worked in her quiet university office, researching species that the Valorian Empire had encountered and absorbed into their sphere of influence. It was good work, peaceful work, but tonight the government had called her. They needed her expertise. They needed to understand the humans. The military transport arrived an hour later, its engines sputtering and coughing. Even the transport systems were failing. The pilot apologized 3 times for the rough flight to the Capitol Command Center. Velrin told him it was fine. Everything was falling apart. A bumpy ride was the least of their problems. The command center was running on backup power. Emergency lights cast everything in harsh shadows. Military officers and government officials rushed back and forth, their faces tight with stress and fear. Velrin had never seen Valorian leadership look so shaken. Fleet Admiral Kessathor met her in a conference room. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. His forearms moved nervously, a sign of deep anxiety in their species. Dr. Velrin, thank you for coming. Admiral, how bad is it? He gestured to a screen that flickered and died and came back to life. As of 1 hour ago, 73% of our quantum network is offline. Our AI defense systems are either shut down or have gone rogue and are attacking their own infrastructure. We've lost contact with 18 colony worlds. Orbital defense platforms around our homeworld are dark. Ships are stranded across the Empire. And it's all because of one human fleet broadcasting from a single location. Velrin sat down slowly. One fleet did all this? One fleet. 73 ships, using what we thought was primitive technology. Cassithor pulled up the data they had collected. We need you to tell us about these humans. Who are they? Where do they come from? And how did they do this to us? Velrun studied the information. There wasn't much. A few intercepted communications, some sensor readings from before the cascade failure, and one brief audio message. She listened to the message 3 times, analyzing the tone and word choice. They're angry, she said finally, but they're not trying to destroy you. If they wanted to, they could have. This is a demonstration that's killed hundreds of our people. Planes fell from the sky when traffic control failed. Medical facilities went dark in the middle of surgeries. Automated systems that people rely on just stopped working. I understand. But from their perspective, you ignored their diplomatic attempts. I'm guessing they tried to contact you before this? Cassithor was quiet for a moment. Then he called up some old files. There were 3 attempts at contact over the past 40 standard years. Each time they wanted to discuss territorial boundaries and protection of pre-spaceflight species. We sent back standard responses telling them to submit formal requests through proper channels. Did they? I assume so. But those requests would have been reviewed by AI systems and filed based on priority. A species with their level of technology would have been classified as low priority. Velrun felt a headache building behind her eyes. So you ignored them. For 40 years you ignored them, and now you're surprised they found another way to get your attention. We didn't ignore them. You dismissed them because their technology looked primitive. Velrun pulled up the sensor data on human ships. Admiral, look at this. Really look at it. Their ships have hulls 3 times thicker than ours. Their systems are completely isolated from each other. They use basic electromagnetic communication instead of quantum links. Does any of this seem familiar to you? Cassithor studied the data. No, why would anyone build ships like that? Because of where they come from. Velrun started searching through the limited information they had on human origin. We have a location for their homeworld from their navigation data. Let me check what we know about that system. She found it. A yellow star, 3rd planet. She pulled up the astronomical data and started reading. Her eyes went wide. Admiral, the human homeworld is a nightmare. Look at this. Massive electromagnetic storms that cover half the planet at any time. A magnetosphere that shifts unpredictably. Solar radiation levels that would kill most species. And the planet itself experiences tectonic activity that causes earthquakes and volcanic eruptions constantly. So they evolved in hell. Their technology isn't primitive. It's hardened. Built to survive conditions that would destroy our equipment in seconds. Velrun pulled up more data, her mind racing. Our quantum computers need stable conditions. Our AI systems need clean electromagnetic environments. Our networked technology assumes a peaceful, controlled setting. But humans never had that. They had to build technology that could work during an electromagnetic storm. Systems that would keep functioning when everything else failed. Cassithor stared at the data. You're saying their technology is designed for disaster? Exactly. And we built our entire civilization on the assumption that disasters wouldn't happen. Everything connected, everything dependent on everything else. It's efficient in peacetime. But the moment someone attacks the network itself... She gestured at the dark room around them. This happens. Another officer entered, his face pale. Admiral, we just received another message from the human fleet. They're giving us 72 hours to withdraw from what they call contested territories. If we don't, they'll keep our systems offline permanently. What contested territories? The officer pulled up a star map. It showed several systems marked in red. These regions, they all have one thing in common. Each contains a pre-spaceflight civilization. Species that are still developing, not yet ready for contact. Velrun understood immediately. They're protecting them. The humans are protecting younger species from being absorbed into your empire before they're ready. It's not absorption, it's guidance. We help species advance. Do they want your help? Did anyone ask them? Velrun knew she was crossing a line, but she didn't care anymore. Admiral, I've studied 17 species that the Valorian Empire guided. 12 of them lost their native cultures within 2 generations. 3 experienced population collapse from diseases they weren't ready for. 1 committed mass suicide rather than live under Valorian control. But that's all in classified files that no one reads because it doesn't fit the story we tell ourselves. The room was silent. Cassithor looked at her with something between anger and shame. The humans know this, Velrun continued. They've probably studied us the way I study other species. They know what we do to younger civilizations, and they're willing to go to war to stop it. Then why haven't they destroyed us? If they can shut down our entire civilization, why are they giving us time to respond? Belrin looked at the message again. Because they don't want to be like us. They don't want to be conquerors. They just want us to leave those other species alone. She paused, and maybe they're hoping we're smart enough to realize we have no choice. Deep in the archives, Velrin spent the next 12 hours searching through old data. She found something that made her call the Admiral immediately. Sir, I found something. 43 years ago, the humans sent us a detailed offer. They wanted to share their technology hardening techniques, methods to protect systems from electromagnetic attack, ways to build redundancy into networks, protocols for operating without AI assistance. Why would they share that? Because they thought you might need it someday. They were trying to help. Look at the message that came with the offer. She read it aloud. We know your technology is more advanced than ours, but we learned hard lessons on a hard world. These lessons could save lives. Please consider this offer in the spirit of friendship between species reaching for the stars together. What happened to the offer? Your AI systems reviewed it, determined it was beneath Valorian interest, and filed it in long-term storage. No one even read it. Kesthor was quiet for a long time. We had the solution to this attack 40 years ago, and we threw it away because we thought we were too advanced to need it. Yes. In space, Captain Brendid and his disabled fleet waited in the darkness. They had been given emergency supplies by the humans. Food, water, medical equipment, even spare parts. Delivered by human shuttles that docked carefully with each disabled Valorian ship. Brendid had spoken with a human commander face to face. The human was shorter than him, with pale skin and eyes that seemed to see right through him. She spoke clearly and without hatred. We're not your enemy, Captain. We're just not going to be ignored anymore. Your people are good at talking about honor and civilization. Now you'll have to prove you actually believe in those things. She had left him with that thought, and in the darkness of his disabled ship, Brendid wondered if she was right. Had they become the villains in someone else's story? Had their advancement blinded them to their own arrogance? He looked at his crew, working by emergency lighting to keep basic life support running. They were scared but alive. The Huma Fleet Admiral Kesethor stood in the military museum, staring at ships that hadn't flown in 500 years. They were relics from a different age, back when the Valorians had just begun exploring the stars. The ships were crewed by modern standards with manual controls and simple computer systems. No AI, no quantum links, no networked anything. They were also the only ships that would still work. Can we actually fly these? He asked the chief engineer beside him. The engineer was old, probably the only person left in the fleet who remembered how these ancient systems worked. She walked along the hull of the nearest ship, running her hand over the metal. The Dreadstar. She was my grandfather's ship. He told me stories about flying her when I was young. That's not an answer. Yes, Admiral, we can fly them. These ships are simple, almost primitive, but they work. And more importantly, they can't be hacked because there's nothing smart enough to hack. She looked at him with sad eyes. You're really going to fight, aren't you? Even after everything that's happened? What choice do we have? If we surrender to the humans, we look weak. Every species in the galaxy will think they can push us around. And if we lose? Kesethor didn't answer. He couldn't imagine losing. The Valorian Empire had never lost a war. Even with their modern fleet disabled, even fighting with museum pieces, they had to try. Pride demanded it. Honor demanded it. Or maybe it was just stubbornness. Over the next 40 hours, they assembled a fleet of 72 ships. All of them were ancient. Some had been restored for display and actually functioned. Others had to be repaired by engineers working around the clock. They pulled crews from the disabled modern fleet. Anyone with combat training who was willing to fly in a ship with no shields, no AI support, and weapons that were basically historical artifacts. Kesethor took command of the Dreadstar himself. If he was going to send people into battle with outdated equipment, he would lead from the front. It was the least he could do. Captain Brendid volunteered to join him. After being disabled and humiliated in his modern ship, he wanted a chance to fight back. Kesthor gave him command of the Valor's Edge, another museum ship that had once been famous for its speed. The ancient fleet launched from the Valorian homeworld. Their engines were loud and inefficient compared to modern drives. Their acceleration was slow, but they moved, And that was more than the rest of the fleet could say. Dr. Velrin tried to stop them. She stood on the command deck before they left, pleading with Kesthor to reconsider. This is madness. The humans have already proven they can defeat our best technology. What makes you think you can win with ships from a museum? These ships can't be shut down by their electromagnetic weapon. We'll fight them conventionally, ship to ship, and we'll show them that the Valorian Empire doesn't surrender. Even if it means more deaths? Even if it means nothing? Kesthor looked at her. It means everything. If we don't fight back, we lose more than this battle. We lose who we are. Velrin shook her head. I hope you survive long enough to realize how wrong you are. The journey to the human fleet took 3 days. The old ships were slow and they had to navigate carefully without the AI systems that normally plotted perfect courses. More than once they had to manually adjust their path to avoid asteroids or gravitational wells. It was exhausting work that reminded everyone how much they had relied on automation. When they finally reached the human position, Kesthor was surprised to see that the human fleet was still there, waiting. They hadn't moved. They hadn't left. It was like they knew the Valorians would come back for a second fight. All ships battle formation, Kesthor ordered over the basic radio system. Weapons ready. When I give the signal, we attack together. No mercy, no hesitation. For Valoria. 72 voices responded. For Valoria. The ancient fleet charged forward. Without shields or advanced systems, they relied on speed and numbers. The plan was simple. Get close enough to use their kinetic weapons and missiles. Overwhelm the humans through sheer firepower. The human fleet responded differently than before. This time they didn't just broadcast. They moved. Their ships spread out into a loose formation. Not organized or optimal, just scattered. It looked chaotic to Kesthor's tactical mind. There was no pattern, no mathematical perfection. Then the humans opened fire. Kinetic rounds and missiles filled the space between the fleets. The Valorians had expected this. What they hadn't expected was the volume. The humans fired everything they had all at once. It was wasteful and inefficient. Any AI would have calculated better firing solutions, but it was also terrifyingly effective. The Valorian ships had no shields. When the human rounds hit, they punched straight through the hulls. 3 ships exploded in the first 30 seconds. 5 more were crippled and spinning out of control. Kesthor gripped his command chair. Return fire. All weapons! The Dreadstar's old plasma cannons charged up and fired. The beams were slower than modern weapons, but they still hit hard. One human ship took a direct hit to its engines and went dark. Another lost half its hull but somehow kept fighting. Its crew apparently working in a section of the ship that was open to vacuum. How are they still fighting? Someone shouted on the bridge, the old engineer answered. Redundancy. Their ships are divided into sections. Even if half the ship is destroyed, the other half can operate independently. It's a terrible design by our standards, but it means they're very hard to kill completely. The battle turned into chaos. Without AI coordination, both sides fought on instinct and training. The Valorians tried to maintain formation. The humans seemed to fight individually, each ship making its own decisions. It looked like madness, but it worked. A human ship rammed straight into the Valor's edge. Captain Brendid's ship spun away. Its hull breached in 3 places. He ordered emergency bulkheads sealed and kept fighting from the part of the ship that still had air. Kesthor watched in horror as more of his ships were destroyed. Not disabled this time. Actually destroyed. Crews dying. Ships breaking apart. This wasn't the clean, surgical warfare of modern combat. This was brutal and ugly and real, and the humans were winning. Admiral, we've lost 30 ships. We need to retreat. No, we keep fighting. Sir, we're going to lose the entire fleet. Kesthor looked at the tactical display. It was true. They were losing badly. The humans had better ships for this kind of fight. Their designs were built to take damage and keep functioning. Valorian ships, even the old ones, were built for an elegant kind of warfare that didn't exist anymore. Then something happened that changed everything. A Valorian ship was hit and started venting atmosphere. The crew was dying, and a human ship approached it not to finish it off but to help. The humans latched onto the damaged Valorian ship and started transferring emergency supplies. In the middle of a battle, the humans were trying to save Valorian lives. Why would they do that? Someone on the bridge asked. Kesthor understood. Because they're not trying to destroy us. They're trying to teach us. He opened a channel to all his ships. Ceasefire. All ships cease fire immediately. Sir? That's an order. Stop shooting. Slowly, painfully, the Valorian ship stopped firing. The humans stopped too, almost instantly, like they had been waiting for it. The space between the fleets was filled with debris and disabled ships and bodies, but the fighting was over. A transmission came from the human fleet. The same rough translated voice from before. Valorian commander. Do you want to keep fighting or do you want to talk? Kessathor looked at what remained of his fleet. 40 ships lost. Hundreds dead. And for what? To prove a point that didn't matter anymore? I want to talk, he said quietly. Good. Hold your position. We're sending shuttles with medical supplies for your wounded. After that, we'll discuss terms. The channel closed. On the bridge of the Dreadstar, everyone was silent. They had lost. Not just the battle, but something more fundamental. They had lost the illusion that they were invincible. Kessathor thought about Velrin's words. She had asked what they would win by fighting. Now he knew the answer. Nothing. They would win nothing. They had just been too proud to admit it before. Human shuttles approached the damaged Valorian ships. They brought medical teams and emergency supplies. The humans worked alongside Valorian crews to save the wounded. Some of the Valorian soldiers were suspicious at first, but most were too tired and hurt to care. Help was help, no matter where it came from. On one of the damaged ships, a Valorian soldier asked a human medic, "Why are you helping us? We were just trying to kill you." The human medic looked up from the wound she was treating. "Because the fight's over. And because letting you die would make us as bad as you thought we were." The soldier didn't understand, but he was grateful anyway. Back on the Dreadstar, Kessathor prepared to meet with the human commanders. He didn't know what they would demand. Surrender terms, probably. Maybe executions. He had been prepared to die in battle. Now he had to be prepared to live with defeat. He looked at his 4 hands. They were shaking. For the first time in his long military career, Fleet Admiral Kessathor was genuinely afraid, not of dying. He had never feared that. He was afraid of what came next. Of facing his people and admitting they had been wrong. Of what? The human ambassador was not what Kessathor expected. She was old, with gray hair and scars on her face that spoke of a hard life. She wore a simple uniform with no decorations or medals. When she stepped onto the Dreadstar, she moved like someone who had spent a lot of time in space, compensating for the artificial gravity with practiced ease. Behind her came 2 others. One was a young man carrying a datapad. The other was a soldier, armed but relaxed. The soldier had a kind face that didn't match the weapon at her hip. The ambassador looked around the damaged bridge and nodded slowly. "I'm Ambassador Chen. Thank you for agreeing to talk instead of die." That took courage. Kessathor felt his pride sting, but he kept his voice level. "I want to know your terms. What do you want from us?" Chen pulled out a chair and sat down without asking permission. It should have been insulting, but somehow it just seemed tired. "I want the same thing we wanted 40 years ago when we first contacted you. I want you to leave the protected zones alone. That's it. That's all. That's all. Pull your ships back from the 7 systems we marked. Stop interfering with pre-spaceflight species. Let them develop on their own terms. Do that and we'll turn your networks back on and leave." Kessathor couldn't believe it. "You disabled our entire civilization, killed hundreds of our people, destroyed our fleet, and all you want is for us to leave some primitive worlds alone?" Chen's face hardened. "Those primitive worlds have names. They have cultures and dreams and futures. And yes, that's all we want. We're not here to conquer you or humiliate you. We're here to protect species that can't protect themselves from you. We were helping those species advance." "Were you?" Chen pulled out a datapad and started reading. "The Corvin people. You made contact with them 70 years ago when they had just invented radio. You gave them technology they weren't ready for. Within 20 years, their culture collapsed. They fought 3 civil wars over who got to control the Valorian technology. Half their population died. The survivors are completely dependent on you now. They can't even grow their own food without your systems." She looked up at Kessathor. "Is that help? We didn't intend for that to happen. But it did happen, and it keeps happening, because you're so sure you know what's best for everyone else." Chen's voice was tired, not angry. We've been watching you for 50 years. We've seen what you do, and we're done watching." The young man with Chen spoke up. "Admiral, we don't hate you. We actually respect a lot of what your civilization has accomplished. But you have a blind spot. You can't see the damage you do because you're so convinced you're doing good." Kesuthor was quiet for a long moment. Then he asked, "Why did you help our wounded? In the battle you could have let them die." Chen smiled, and it was genuine. "Because we're not monsters. We fight when we have to. We kill when we have to. But we don't let people die when we can save them. That's the difference between us and you. We know we're capable of terrible things, so we have to try very hard to be better. You think you're already better, so you never try." The words hit harder than any weapon. Kesthor thought about all the species the Valorian Empire had absorbed, all the cultures that had been lost, all the civilizations that had been transformed into lesser copies of Valoria. He had never thought of it as destruction before. He had always believed it was progress. "How do we fix it?" he asked quietly. "You can't fix what's already broken. But you can stop breaking new things." Chen leaned forward. "Here's what we're offering. We'll restore your networks and technology. We'll share our hardening techniques so you can protect yourselves from attacks like this in the future. And we'll establish a neutral zone around the protected systems. In exchange, you withdraw, and you never contact those species until they develop spaceflight on their own. And if we refuse, then you stay dark. Your empire collapses. Millions die from starvation and system failures. Your colonies are cut off forever. Is that really worth it to maintain control over 7 systems you have no right to control?" It wasn't. Kesthor knew it wasn't. But admitting it meant admitting that everything he had believed about the Valorian Empire was wrong. It meant accepting that they were not the heroes of their own story. "I need to consult with my government. You have 48 hours left on our deadline. After that, we make the shutdown permanent." Chen stood up. "Admiral, I hope you make the right choice. We really don't want to be your enemies, but we will be if we have to." She left with her team. Kesthor sat alone on his damaged bridge, thinking about empires and pride and the cost of being wrong. On the Valorian homeworld, the debate raged. The government was split. Half wanted to fight to find some way to defeat the humans and restore Valorian dominance. The other half wanted to accept the terms and save what they could. Dr. Velrin addressed the council. "I've studied the humans extensively over the past week. I've read everything we have on them, everything we ignored for decades. And I've learned something important. They're not like us. They didn't grow up in a safe, gentle world. They come from a planet that tried to kill them every single day." She pulled up images of Earth, storms that covered continents, volcanoes that could destroy civilizations, earthquakes that reshaped coastlines, ice ages and heat waves and diseases that killed millions. They survived all of that, and it taught them something we never learned. It taught them that survival isn't about being the strongest or the smartest. It's about being adaptable, being able to function when everything else fails. They built their entire civilization around the idea that disaster is normal, and you have to be ready for it. An old counselor spoke. "What does this have to do with our decision?" "Everything. Because we built our civilization around the opposite idea. We assumed peace and stability. We assumed our technology would always work. We assumed we would always be in control. And the moment someone challenged those assumptions, we fell apart." She looked around the room. "The humans are offering to teach us. They're offering to share the lessons they learned the hard way. We can take that offer and become stronger, or we can refuse it and stay broken. That's the real choice here." The vote was close, but eventually the acceptance won. The Valorian Empire would withdraw from the protected zones. They would accept human terms. They would survive, but they would be different. When Ambassador Chen received the message, she allowed herself a small smile. They made the smart choice, good for them. "What happens now?" the young man asked. "Now we keep our word. We restore their systems, we share our technology, and we watch to make sure they actually withdraw. And we hope they learn from this. And if they don't?" Chen looked out at the stars. "Then we do this all over again. But I think they will." They're proud, but they're not stupid. They've seen what we can do. They won't forget that. Over the next week, human technicians worked with Valorian engineers to restore the quantum networks. It was slow work, but gradually systems came back online. Power grids stabilized, ships regained function. The Empire began to breathe again. But things were different now. The Valorians had learned that their technology, for all its advancement, was fragile. They started implementing the hardening techniques the humans shared. They built redundancy into their systems. They trained people to function without AI assistance, just in case. Dr. Velrin was appointed as the chief human liaison. She spent months learning about human culture, history, and philosophy. The more she learned, the more she respected them. They were a species that had faced extinction dozens of times and survived each time through stubborn determination and adaptability. She became friends with Ambassador Chen. They had long conversations about their different species and what they could learn from each other. Chen told her stories about Earth, about a world so dangerous that humans had to evolve creativity and cooperation just to survive childhood. "We're not special," Chen said one night over drinks. "We're just survivors. We got lucky enough times to make it to space, but we never forgot where we came from. We never forgot that the universe is dangerous and unforgiving." "I think that makes you very special," Velrin replied. "You could have used your strength to conquer. Instead, you used it to protect. We've done our share of conquering, had plenty of wars among ourselves, made every mistake you can imagine." Chen looked sad. "That's why we know what you were doing to those younger species, because we did it to each other for thousands of years. We know how it ends, and we didn't want to see it happen again." Captain Brendid recovered from his wounds and returned to service. He requested assignment to the border regions near human space. When asked why, he said he wanted to learn from them. He spent years studying human tactics and philosophy. Eventually, he wrote a book about the experience that became required reading in the Valorian Military Academy. Fleet Admiral Kessathor resigned from his position. He couldn't lead anymore, not after what had happened. But he didn't disappear. Instead, he traveled to the protected zones and watched the species there develop naturally, without interference. He saw their cultures bloom and grow in ways that would have been impossible under Valorian guidance. It was beautiful and humbling and sad, knowing what had been lost in other systems. Thank you for watching and comment for next part.